The January transfer window has slammed closed. Newcastle have made five signings that they hope will keep them in the Premier League. But is it enough? Well, in this video, we'll try and answer that question as best we can. And at the end, we'll rate the whole window out of 10. Yes, the window's closed. Newcastle have brought in 5 players. They can't bring in any more. This has to be the team that keeps Newcastle in the Premier League. But is it enough? Well, we'll try and dive into that as much as we can. But first things first, in terms of intent, how have Newcastle done this January transfer window? Because, of course, the new owners have come in. This is their first window. And have they tried their best? And have they put the money in? Yes, is the answer. They've spent more than Newcastle have ever done previously in a January transfer window. £92 million they've spent. If you have a look at this chart here from The Athletic, look at the previous 5 years under Mike Ashley. Newcastle only spent £18 million. It just shows the lack of ambition and intent from that era. But Newcastle have had to put the money in now due to the lack of investment those previous years, Newcastle have had to play a little bit of catch-up and invest into this squad heavily to try and keep them in the league. It's not the easiest window to do that as well, January. Managers and teams don't want to sell their best players halfway through a season. So Newcastle have done quite well to bring in the 5 players that they have. And who are those 5? Well, they're Kieran Trippier, Matt Targett, Dan Burn, Bruno Gameros and Chris Wood. We're going to look at these players individually, but first let's have a look at the wider context. Okay, so what we've got up here is the Fantasy Football Hub fixture ticker. It ranks fixtures in terms of difficulty. And at the minute, we've got the overall setting on. So blue is seen as an easier fixture and red is seen as a really difficult one. This is obviously fantasy football, but it helps us nonetheless. These are the next 5 games, as you can see here. And in terms of the relegation battle, Watford are seen of having the best fixtures in terms of the relegation rivals. Newcastle rank mid-table, Burnley just a little bit higher up than them, and Norwich are right down there for having a difficult run. As you can see there, they've got Manchester City and Liverpool coming up. But looking more in particular at Newcastle and what Newcastle can do, managing their own destiny. Newcastle have Everton coming up today. Hopefully this video will be out before then. Everton next. Massive in terms of Frank Lampard having the new manager bounce at Everton. They won 4-1 the other day. That's a crucial one because Everton can be dragged into this mix, especially if Newcastle get a win today. Aston Villa after that. West Ham have been on form. Brentford are losing a little bit, and Brighton are, well, they're drawing lots of games. They're hard to beat, but these fixtures still are winnable. There's no real top 6 teams in there. You could maybe perhaps argue West Ham, but these games are winnable for Newcastle. So you like to think these players, if they can gel quickly and get together and play well, Newcastle can get the results they need from these upcoming games and get this February off to a very good start. And yes, looking at the table, as you can see here, Newcastle are currently 19th. It's all a bit over the place at the minute because teams are still trying to catch up on fixtures due to COVID and falling behind. But Newcastle have played 21. Burnley, of course, are still quite a way behind. There was a distance of like 4 games at one point, but they've cut that down to 2. Burnley are bottom. They're only 2 points off Newcastle. They've had 2 0-0 draws in the last couple of games. They're defending well. Obviously, they've brought in Wout Weghorst, a replacement for Chris Wood, who we've brought in. Watford as well. They've got the new manager in Roy Hodgson. They've been on abysmal form at the minute, and Norwich have really begun to pick it up. They've got a few wins off the bounce under the belt, and they're now currently out the relegation zone. But look at that, Everton, Newcastle's next game, they're on 19 points. They're just 4 points clear of Newcastle. Obviously, they've got a game in hand, but this is a 6-pointer. So this shows how big the Everton game is. So that's the wider context looked at. Let's have a look at the January transfer window signings that Newcastle have made. And no other place to start than Kieran Trippier. The first one in the door. Trippier signed for £12 million from Atletico Madrid. And this was a major coup. At the time, Newcastle were 19th in the league like they are now. It was a little bit bleaker as well. Obviously, Trippier, since he's come in, has doubled the number of wins Newcastle have made so far this season. So it's been a good start for him. But bringing in a player like him, who just won La Liga the previous season, spoke an awful lot about what Newcastle are trying to build here and the players they're wanting to attract, and has led, I think, to the majority success that Newcastle have had the rest of the window, persuading players like Bruno Gameros to join the club. So Kieran Trippier, 2 games in the Premier League, he's unbeaten so far, and fans have already called for him to be the next captain, really, which just shows what a good start he's had. He's added a composure, a calmness to the defence, which has been playing like maniacs a lot this season, panicking all the time, leaking goals. Trippier's had a little bit of steadiness in there, which has been good to see. So Trippier's had a good start. Next in was Chris Wood. Chris Wood joined for £25 million, and obviously one of the most notable things here, Newcastle have depleted a Premier League rival in Burnley by taking their main goal-scoring threat off them and putting him in their team. Chris Wood so far has played a couple of games. He's not set the world alight just yet, but this is a player who needs the service, and Newcastle haven't given it to him yet. Fraser and St. Maximin haven't put in the balls that Chris Wood needs to attack and put the ball in the back of the net quite yet. He's not one of those players who engineers his own opportunities. So this is a player who relies on service, and this will be something that we'll see in the coming weeks. But what I think Chris Wood will be helped with massively is the new signing of Matt Targett as well, who can combine with Kieran Trippier, who we've just talked about in the sense of putting the ball into the box. Paul Dummett wasn't going to do that originally for Newcastle. He's a very irate Paul Dummett. He's defensively sound. He doesn't make many mistakes. But what Newcastle are trying to do now is try and push those full-backs up to put good quality crosses into the box for Chris Wood to attack and score goals. And what's got to be said about Chris Wood as well is that Callum Wilson's now going to be out until the last few games of the season, so the goals really rely on Chris Wood now. But yes, like we just said, Matt Targett is now in the door. An improvement on that left side. Matt Ritchie isn't a natural left back. Newcastle have now expelled Jamal Lewis from the squad. He's not in that final 25. So Matt Targett's going to be a starter for Newcastle in that left back position, which I think is an improvement. Obviously Villa have let him go on loan because they've brought in Luca Digne. But I think Targett for Newcastle in their position is a good signing, and especially on deadline day, it's difficult to bring players in, and they've improved in that area, which I think they needed to do. It wasn't a priority position, but a good one nonetheless. Okay, let's get on to the big one. Bruno Gameros. He's the big money signing, the one who we like to think really is going to kick off this era and is going to be here for many years to come in terms of Newcastle building their team up and hopefully challenging for Europe, especially if they can stay in the league this season. Let's have a look at Bruno Gameros' stats. Okay, we're on FB Ref here, and look at this. Look at all these green bars here. So what FB Ref does, as you can see, is that they compare Bruno Gameros to the other 5 top European leagues in Europe over the last 365 days, so over the last year of football being played. And what you can see straight away across these statistics in terms of attacking, tackling, defending, he's pretty much an all-rounder. Now, naturally, Bruno Gameros is a 6, but he can play as an 8, and he can also play as a 10. Not so much as a 10, don't get excited about him delivering in terms of goals, but what he can do is transition this team up the field, play passes that are progressive, making his team move up. What Newcastle have done an awful lot is play so negatively and play behind, which Bruno Gameros is going to hopefully put to a stop. He can break up play as well. Obviously, what you need to remember is he's leaving a team from Lyon, who's more of a possession-based team than Newcastle, and in Ligue 1, which is a bit slower. So he can keep the ball, but he can also break it up. Newcastle is a counter-attacking team. They've only kept about 40% possession on average in each game so far this season. But what this player can do is break up play and keep the ball for Newcastle as well. So what you're going to see in these upcoming weeks, I'd like to think, is Newcastle having higher possession stats and making more opportunities, and hopefully stopping the constant onslaught on their back 4, because Newcastle's midfield is dissected so easily at the minute. Hopefully Bruno's going to be the anchor in there to stop that. Okay, I could talk about Bruno Gameros all day. We'll hopefully do a video on just him in the near future. But moving on now to Dan Burn. We'll have a look at Dan Burn's stats as well, because I know a lot of people are also thinking maybe 13 million was a little bit too much for Dan Burn. And obviously when Newcastle were comparing the possible signings of Sven Botman and Gabriel from Sevilla, this seemed a bit of a downgrade, a plan C or a plan D maybe. But look at his stats, because they might surprise you. Now, here we go again. We're comparing a player's stats compared to many other players in the top 5 European divisions. And what Dan Burn shows is that he can keep the ball really well. He's played as a left-back for Brighton before. Because of his dribbling skills, he can bring the ball down the line. He's got a little bit of pace about him as well. For a 6'6" defender, he's very impressive at keeping the ball. Good feet for a big man, you could say, if you want to use the cliche. But he can also win the ball, obviously. You'd like to think when he's 6'6". He blocks it well. He tackles well. Look at those stats for tackles. He's in the top 13%. For blocks as well. This is a player who can, although he's only played 13 games or so for Brighton this season, was a bit more of a third choice defender. This defender can easily slot into Newcastle's starting 11 and is definitely an upgrade on perhaps Jamal Lascelles, most certainly Kieran Clark and Fabian Schär, I'd like to think. So Newcastle have improved. Okay, so all sounds quite positive from what you've seen so far, and I've said I'm going to rate the windows so far at the end of the video, but there's some areas that Newcastle have missed out on crucially, and I really believe they needed an attacking midfielder, most notably. I was saying about Chris Wood, he needs the service, he needs the balls into the box to score goals, and I think Jesse Lingard would have been the answer, and they didn't get him in on deadline day. Bitterly disappointing, but let's have a look at some more Fantasy Football Hub stats. I've compared Ryan Fraser this season and compared to Jesse Lingard last season, which is more fair when he was playing week in and week out for West Ham, and they've both played 16 games each if you compare them across the years. Ryan Fraser, these are fantasy stats you've got to remember, so Ryan Fraser actually hasn't got any goals or assists this season officially, but I like to credit players when they're due. Fraser's not been as poor as we'd like to think. He should have had a penalty against Man City, and these assists here will be taken into consideration for winning penalties or free kicks that have been scored directly after that. But comparing him to Jesse Lingard, I mean, look at those stats from Lingard. More shots on target, more goals, more assists, creating chances, key passes. Lingard is smashing it out the park compared to Ryan Fraser on these stats, and I really believe Lingard would have made the difference if Newcastle managed to bring him in on loan, which knocks my confidence a bit in terms of thinking if Newcastle can stay in the league or not. Another player that Newcastle missed out on was another forward, Hugo Ekitaike, if you pronounce it that way. Apologies to him. We'll call him Hugo for now. He is a 19-year-old striker from the French First Division. He scored around 8 goals so far this season, and this is a player who would have offered a little bit of pace, a little bit more skill and agility than what Chris Wood can offer. It would have been a different dimension to Newcastle's front line, but sadly he said no on deadline day. Newcastle went back in for him at the last moment, and as a young forward, and I guess it's a big decision to make in just a few hours, so completely understood that he rejected it, but especially with the news now that Callum Wilson is out for the last few days of the season, this could prove a problem if Chris Wood gets injured, because Newcastle's only other natural forward would then be Dwight Gill. And I tell you, if Chris Wood gets injured, I think it's likely, or if he doesn't hit the ground running, Newcastle are going to struggle to get the points and the goals to stay up. Okay, so that's the window overall. Mostly positive. Newcastle have gotten 5 big players that they needed. They needed to cover that centre-half position. The fullbacks weren't essential, but in terms of stopping Newcastle conceding the goals, I think a completely new back four makes sense. And they've nearly managed to do that. The midfield, Bruno Gameros, wow, what a signing. That was a massive one in terms of defending and attacking. I like to think that Bruno Gameros is going to be one of those standout players when we can look back on maybe Newcastle's version of City's Yaya Toure when they managed to get the money in and build from then. They managed to bring Chris Wood, a very decent striker, I think, who will get the goals for Newcastle if they give him the service. But yes, they've missed out on another attacker. They didn't get They maybe brought in Dan Burn, but they didn't bring in the Sven Botman or the Gabriel, the top centre-half that they were hoping on getting in. So overall, Newcastle's transfer window, I'm going to rate it 7. A 7 out of 10 because of those pros and cons. They have made the effort, the owners. In terms of effort, they can't be knocked at all. It's so difficult in a January window, and you like to think if Newcastle can stay in the league, the summer is going to be really exciting. Yep, so that was a little bit of a longer video than usual. Newcastle's next match is against Everton. I'm hoping this video goes out on time, and I'm looking forward to seeing these new players. Bruno Gameros hopefully in action. Dan Burns maybe got a foot injury, so we'll see if he plays. Matt Targett, you'd like to think, will slot in there. And obviously Trippier's been playing and Chris Wood's been playing. So yeah, let's see how they do. this has been another video on my channel. Please like, subscribe, comment. I want to hear what you think. We're still growing the channel. If you like these videos been a little bit longer, let me know. This has been slightly more than usual. If you prefer them shorter, more bite-sized, let me know. Let me know what you think. I appreciate you watching. So yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.